The manager told me there was only one important rule. At exactly to 17 a.m. Do not look at camera 12. He didn't explain why. He didn't smile when he said it. And now I know. It wasn't a warning. It was a test. I took the job because I needed money. Night security at an archive building on the outskirts of the city. 6 floors. No active businesses. Just government storage. The building felt too quiet. Even for 1 a.m. The manager handed me keys, a flashlight, and the rule sheet. Rule 1. Do not enter floor 4 after to 17 a.m. Rule 2. If you hear your name called, do not respond. Rule 3. If camera 12 shows movement, look away immediately. He paused before leaving, then added, if you see yourself, don't wave. That part made me uncomfortable. Everything was normal until to 16 a.m. I sat in the security room, watching 12 camera feeds. The digital clock on the wall changed. To 17 a.m. Camera 12 flickered. Static. Black screen. Then it came back. It showed the 4th floor hallway. At the end of the corridor, someone stood, facing the wall. Security uniform. Flashlight on belt. My uniform. My badge number. I felt cold. The figure slowly turned. It had my face, but older, tired, eyes hollow, and it smiled slightly. The radio on my desk crackled, and in my exact voice, it said, "You're earlier than I was." Then I heard footsteps. Above me, heavy, measured, walking across floor 4. But I never left the security room. The camera showed the hallway empty now, but the footsteps continued, slowly moving toward the stairwell. Dust fell from the ceiling tile above my desk. The radio crackled again. Don't let it reach the stairs. That voice wasn't mine. It sounded like me, but strained, like someone speaking through water. I shouldn't have, but I did. I went upstairs. Floor 4 felt warmer than the others. The air heavier, like pressure in a sealed room. Halfway down the corridor, I saw him again. Me, standing under the flickering lights, facing the wall. He turned slowly. This time, he spoke without the radio. It copies faster when you look at it. I felt something behind me. I turned. The hallway behind me looked longer than before, light stretching into darkness. When I looked back, he was gone, but I felt breathing near my ear, and something whispered, "Now, it knows your face." I ran downstairs, locked myself in the security room, checked the monitors. All cameras were normal, except camera 12. It now showed the security room, and someone sitting in my chair, watching the monitors. But I was standing in the hallway. That's when I realized. The footage wasn't live. It was ahead. The timestamp read to 23 a.m. But my clock said to 19. The version of me on camera 12 slowly turned toward the lens and said, 4 nights left. The next night, I tried not to look at camera 12, but at to 17 a.m. It wasn't the camera that changed. It was the building. The version of me on camera 12 said I had 4 nights left. I thought it was a threat. It wasn't. It was a countdown. On the second night, I taped over camera 12. I didn't want to see it. To 17 a.m. The air changed. The walls creaked, like something inside the structure shifted. Then I heard it. Breathing. Deep. Slow. The entire building inhaled. The hallway lights dimmed slightly, then brightened again. Exhaled. The building wasn't haunted. It was alive. I checked my reflection in the monitor. For a split second, it blinked slower than I did. My movements felt delayed, like something was sensing. The radio turned on by itself. In my voice, but calmer. Stop resisting. It hurts more when you resist. I backed away from the desk. Camera 12 still taped began flickering through the tape. Light leaking through paper. Something moving behind it. I searched the building blueprint. There was no floor for listed. The building officially had 5 floors, but the elevator had 6 buttons, and the stairwell sign clearly said 4. At 17 a.m., the 4th floor door opened by itself. I didn't touch it. The hallway looked longer than before, and at the end, I saw 2 figures now. Both me, one calm, one terrified. The calm one said, "You're sensing faster than expected." The terrified one whispered, "Don't let it finish." And behind them, something tall shifted in the darkness. I felt something inside my chest tighten, like a pressure building. My radio crackled one last time. 3 nights left, and when I checked the security room camera, I wasn't alone in the room anymore. Something was standing directly behind me, close enough to touch. Cut. On the 3rd night, I stopped checking the cameras because I realized something worse. It wasn't copying my body. It was copying my thoughts. I woke up before my alarm, 3:12 p.m., but something felt wrong. I remembered dreaming about the 4th floor, but I hadn't slept there. I went to the bathroom mirror. For a split second, my reflection didn't look confused. It looked calm, like it understood something I didn't. At work that night, I didn't tape over camera 12. I didn't even look at it. The radio crackled immediately. In my exact tone. "You're finally cooperating." My blood went cold. I never said that out loud. Like my thoughts were echoing. I thought, "Stand up." My body didn't move, but camera 12 showed me standing up in the security room. But I was still sitting in my chair. I felt something shift in my head. A memory surfaced of standing on floor 4, facing the wall. But the clock on the wall still said 2:17. It wasn't just ahead of time anymore. It was ahead of me. I forced myself upstairs. The 4th floor felt different now. Less hostile. Almost welcoming. The hallway lights were steady. No flickering. At the end of the corridor, "You're sensing faster." The terrified one looked weaker, like he was fading. I asked the calm one, "What are you?" He smiled slightly. "I'm you." After. Behind them, the tall shadow moved. It wasn't copying. It was extracting, pulling something invisible from the terrified version. Memories. Emotions. Fear. I realized something horrifying. The building wasn't replacing guards instantly. It was transferring them. Slowly. Over 7 nights. Back in the security room, I noticed something disturbing. I knew where the flashlight was placed. I knew the exact time the air vent would creak. I knew when camera 12 would flicker. Before it did. It wasn't prediction. It was memory. But not mine. The radio turned on again. 2 nights left. And then it added something new. This one, like I was a model, a version. At 2:22 a.m., The security room camera feed switched automatically. It showed floor 4. The terrified version of me was gone. Only the calm one remained. He looked directly into the lens and said, "Tomorrow, you'll understand." On the 4th night, the manager didn't greet me. He greeted someone standing behind me, and that's when I realized he could see it too. But not at me. He looked just over my shoulder and said, "Good, you're stabilizing." I turned around. No one there. When I looked back, he was watching me carefully, like a scientist observing results. I asked him, "Can you see it?" He paused, then said, "You don't call it anymore after night 5. I searched deeper in the archive database. Hidden folder. Restricted access. Security personnel logs. And a new name replaced the previous one. Not hired. Replaced. I checked the earliest record. 30 years ago. The manager's name was listed as night guard. Same face as today. No aging. No change. He wasn't managing the building. He was surviving it. At exactly to 17 a.m. I didn't wait. I walked upstairs voluntarily. Floor 4 no longer felt hostile. It felt familiar. The hallway lights glowed steadily. No flickering now. At the end, the calm version of me stood alone. No terrified version. He looked stronger. More solid. "You're almost aligned," he said. Behind him, the tall shadow stood fully visible now. It wasn't random. It had structure. Limbs too long. Head tilted. Skin like smoke wrapped around bone. It wasn't feeding. It was merging. The calm version of me stepped closer. "I was you for nights ago." That hit me harder than anything else. He wasn't an imitation. He was the previous cycle. The building doesn't clone you. It advances you. Each guard becomes the next iteration. Cleaner, calmer, less afraid. The shadow leaned forward, and for the first time, I heard it speak clearly. "Containment requires continuity." Back downstairs, the manager was waiting. He didn't look surprised to see me. He looked relieved. "You're adapting faster than most." I asked him, "What is this place?" He didn't hesitate. "It's not storage." He explained calmly. "The entity cannot leave the building, but it cannot remain stable alone. It needs a mind, a template, a consciousness to anchor itself to reality. Every 7 nights, it transitions. One mind merges. One version continues. One version dissolves. And your night 4, he said. 2 nights left." Before leaving, the manager said something that broke me. "If you refuse, it doesn't stop. It just spreads." As I walked to my car, I glanced at the building windows, and for the first time, I saw multiple silhouettes on floor 4, all shaped like me, watching, waiting. On the 5th night, I tried to quit, but when I got home, the 4th floor was waiting for me there. On the 5th night, I didn't show up. I turned off my phone, ignored the manager's calls, packed a bag, and drove. I made it 20 miles before I realized I was still on the same road. The same cracked streetlight, the same flickering gas station, like the world had folded in on itself. And in my rearview mirror, for a split second, I saw the archive building behind me. It was impossible. I hadn't turned around. I went back home, locked my door, told myself it was stress, lack of sleep. But at 2:17 a.m., my bedroom lights flickered. The air shifted, and I heard something upstairs. The sound of slow footsteps, heavy, measured. I live on the top floor. There's no upstairs. Then I heard something worse. The elevator ding from my hallway. But my building doesn't have an elevator. The air pressure changed. Like before, like the archive. The breathing started. Slow, deep. The building was sensing to me now, not the other way around. I ran to the bathroom mirror. My reflection looked normal until I stepped away. It didn't move. It stayed, staring, calm. Then it blinked slowly and said, "You don't need the building anymore." Cold ran down my spine. The fourth floor wasn't a location. It was a state. The entity wasn't confined to walls. It was confined to me. The building was just the containment frame, and I was becoming the next frame. At 2:30 a.m., there was a knock on my apartment door. Slow. 3 taps. I didn't open it, but I looked through the peephole. The manager stood outside, smiling calmly. "How did you find me?" I asked through the door. He replied, "You brought it home." He wasn't threatening. He sounded tired. "Once night 5 begins," he said, "the building transitions to you. You're the new anchor." I felt something shift inside my chest, like a hollow space forming. He added, "You can still finish the cycle. Come back tomorrow. If you don't, it will continue without containment." Behind him, at the end of the hallway, then the breathing got louder. Not in the room. Inside my head, the terrified version of me appeared in the corner of the room. Weak, fading. "You have 1 night left," he whispered. At 2:17 a.m. exactly, all the lights in my apartment went out. When they came back on, I was standing in the archive lobby. I never drove there. The manager stood by the security desk and said calmly, "Night 6. Behind him, the doors to floor 4 were already open. Cut. On the 6th night, I finally saw what happens to the version that doesn't survive. And I wish I hadn't. On the 6th night, I finally saw what happens to the version that doesn't survive. And I wish I hadn't." The manager didn't stop me this time. He just stepped aside and let me walk toward the elevator. When the doors opened, there was no button panel anymore. Just one lit number. 4. When the doors opened, the hallway wasn't flickering anymore. It was stable, solid, like it had finished forming. The terrified version of me was strapped into one. The calm version stood beside the other. The tall entity loomed behind them, watching, waiting. The terrified version saw me and began struggling. "You can still stop it," he shouted. The calm version shook his head. "No, it hurts more if you resist." The entity stepped forward, its limbs elongated, Not violently, not aggressively, just precisely. Like a surgeon preparing for a procedure, it placed its hands on the terrified version's shoulders. And that's when it began. The air shimmered, like heat rising from asphalt. The terrified version didn't scream at first. He just gasped. Then I saw it. His outline began breaking apart. Not into dust, not into light, into pieces of memory. Fragments of images floated outward. Childhood moments, fears, regrets, every insecurity, every hesitation. The entity absorbed them slowly. And as it did, the calm version grew more defined, stronger, more complete. The terrified one wasn't dying. He was being subtracted. The entity turned its head toward me, and I felt pressure inside my skull, like something pushing outward. The calm version stepped toward me. "We don't disappear," he said softly. "We simplify." I felt something leave my chest. Fear, doubt, the need to escape, all draining out. The terrified version faded completely. The chair was empty. The calm one handed me the flashlight. "You're next." And I understood. Not next to dissolve. Next to stabilize. The entity wasn't hunting. It was refining. Back downstairs, the manager looked exhausted. "You've seen it now," he said. "I didn't choose this job either." I asked him how long he'd been here. He smiled faintly. "Long enough that I don't remember before." The building needs one stable mind to anchor the entity. Without it, reality round it fractures. It spreads. The guards are continuity. One dissolves. One stabilizes. Cycle continues. "You have one night left," he said. "After that, you won't remember resisting." At exactly to 17 a.m., all the security monitors turned on at once. They showed something new. Not the hallway, not floor 4. They showed the outside world. Streets, houses, people walking normally, and behind each one, a faint silhouette, watching, waiting. The entity wasn't contained. It was networked, and I was about to become one of its anchors. The building was never containing the entity. It was containing us. It felt stable, balanced, like something had finally aligned. The manager didn't greet me. He simply nodded, like a ritual had reached its final step. "Are you ready?" he asked. I didn't answer, because I already knew. This wasn't about choice anymore. It was about completion. At 17 a.m., the elevator doors opened without being called. The light inside was softer now, warmer, inviting. There were no buttons, just the number for glowing steadily. When the doors opened, the hallway wasn't long anymore. It wasn't distorted. It wasn't breathing. It was perfectly straight, perfectly quiet. At the end of it, the containment room waited. Inside, there were no multiple versions anymore. Only one chair, and behind it, the entity. Tall, still, defined. It wasn't shifting anymore. It wasn't unstable. It looked almost human now. Its head tilted slightly as I entered. The calm version of me stood beside the chair, fully solid, clear, confident. "You lasted longer than most," he said. "I fought," I replied. He shook his head, gently. "No, you synchronized." Other archives, other containment points, other anchors, different cities, different names, all connected, not by walls, but by consciousness. Then everything stabilized. When I opened my eyes, I was standing in the security room. To 18 a.m. The monitors were steady. Camera 12 showed an empty hallway. The breathing was gone. The distortion gone. The pressure gone. The building felt quiet, truly quiet. The manager walked in at 6 a.m. He looked at me carefully, then smiled. "You're stable," he said. I felt calm, clear, focused, like something heavy had been removed, or perhaps reorganized. He handed me a folder. Inside were employment papers, my promotion, facility manager, effective immediately. Tonight, I hired someone new. He asked about Rule 3. If I see myself, don't respond? I smiled gently, like the manager once did. It's just protocol, I said. At exactly to 17 a.m., camera 12 flickered. The new guard leaned closer to the screen. At the end of the hallway, he saw himself facing the wall. And for the first time in months, I felt something stir behind me. Not unstable, not hungry, just waiting. Because continuity requires replacement, and I won't be here forever. If you ever take a night shift job, and they tell you not to look at camera 12 at to 17 a.m., please don't, because someone has to continue. And one day, it might be you.